Hi everyone and welcome to my channel, Wild Heart Warrior. So today I want to talk about a topic that I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is vulnerability and connection. So vulnerability is defined by the Cambridge Dictionary as the ability to be hurt, influenced, or attacked, which doesn't sound like a good thing, right? Don't want to expose myself, so I should put up my armor, put up my guard, and not share the things that could not expose myself to being ridiculed, to being hurt. But Brené Brown, in her talk, The Power of Vulnerability, which I will link below, talks about how vulnerability is actually the path to connection and the feeling of worthiness. So she talks a lot about shame's role in this and this idea that we're not good enough, we're not going to be good enough. When we share ourselves, we should hide the parts of ourselves that are not worthy of being shared or expressed. But what she says is that when we're really able to stand in the knowing of our worthiness, that we, by being human, by being who we are, by existing, we are worthy. And when we can tap into that worthiness and our authentic self, we can share it and be vulnerable and know that no matter what, it's okay. No matter what comes back to us, no matter what mistakes, no matter how scary it is or whatever it is that we're feeling, that is normal and it's worthy and it needs to be shared and seen and heard by somebody else. And how that really allows other people to do that as well. And it creates real connection. It closes that gap that sometimes we create by not expressing who we really are. So I've been thinking a lot about this and what that means. Like, what's the first step in being vulnerable? If, okay, that sounds great. I want to be vulnerable and I want to feel worthy and I want to have connection. So where do I start? Because that sounds scary. So to open up to being vulnerable, you have to get vulnerable. And for me, that means tapping into our authentic selves, like really doing a deep dive into who we are and to what we feel and think and believe and how we got to this point. Like, we're constantly evolving creatures and our past influences our present, which influences our future. And we're constantly changing and evolving. So the fears that I have, where does that come from? The anger I have or the resentment I have, where does that come from? Or the guilt or the shame, where does it come from? Is it from an experience I have? Is it from what other people have taught me or what the media has shown me? Where does that come from? So the first step is understanding ourselves and really looking at ourselves. Those feelings that we're supposed to push away, not feel, anger, guilt, resentment, jealousy, sadness, things like that. Well, let's look at them. Let's hold that space for ourselves to experience who we really are and understand it and be able to integrate that into who we are. What are my fears? What are my desires? What are my beliefs and why? Where does that come from? Do I still believe really what I believed before? Am I open to change? Am I open to growth and to evolving? And I think when we can do that, we are able to really more fully accept ourselves in all of our imperfection. And it's a process. I'm not saying like do this tomorrow and the next day you're going to be like, yeah, all my light and dark I accepted and I'm a full person and here we go, I'm sharing it with the world. It's a little bit more of a process. But when we can do that, when we can realize like I'm just human and it's okay to be scared and it's okay to feel anger or uncertainty or anxiety or whatever it is, it's okay. But when we're able to realize that in ourselves, then we can do that for others. And that's where the connection is born. Because if I can notice that in myself, then I can notice that in you. I can accept that in you. And I can understand that you're human, you're imperfect, you have your own fears and desires and beliefs and traumas and hurt, and that influences how you express yourself to the world also. And what I think is so important in this part is not, yes, the expressing myself as who I am and knowing that I'm worthy of doing that is important, but it's just as important to be able to hold space for somebody else to do that, to be able to receive that vulnerability of somebody. When somebody opens up and shares what's hurting them, what they're angry about, what they're scared about, and know that that's okay and it's beautiful and it's human. And then I can recognize that in myself and in the other person, and that's where that raw connection comes in, and it's a space where so much beauty and growth and love can happen. It's kind of like the idea namaste, right? Like the divine in me witnesses the divine in you, I think. I kind of think that this, yes, we're divine, but also we're very human. And it's like the humanness in me sees and witnesses the humanness in you. And all of the imperfection and all of the messiness that's included in that is beautiful. And when we can really connect in that way, we're going to really create change. And I really believe that. So being able to witness somebody, listen, hold space without judgment, being able to witness it, even if it threatens your truth, being able to witness somebody else's truth, even if it threatens or it doesn't agree with what your truth is, that's okay, that maybe you could learn something, that maybe you can have some wiggle room in your own set of beliefs, in your own way of seeing the world. How can you expand that? What if it's a new idea that really resonates with you, but you haven't thought of it before until now? So I think that this space, like I said, is a process, and I like to think of it as approaching it with this curiosity in the sense of play, like I talked about in my last message. Being open to playing with your own vulnerability, with playing with your own imperfection, and your dog's imperfection, and being able to play with that space and be curious about your own self and your own emotions, but being curious also for the other person's emotions. So I want to offer you a couple activities or things you could do to try to play around with this. The first one would be some journaling exercises. One thing you could write about would be, in what ways do I feel really vulnerable right now? In any situation. Why am I feeling vulnerable? Another one could be, how am I worthy? Why am I worthy? Another could just be, what are my deepest fears, my deepest desires, my core beliefs? And where can I open up to more love? Because that's beautiful. And that should always be our goal, to open up to more love, to being more loved, to being more loving. And if we are constantly, as creatures, we're constantly growing, we're constantly changing, evolving, expanding. So why can't my emotions, my beliefs, my ideas, my truth. And so I want you to play around with this and have fun with it and see if you can just be a little bit more vulnerable or open up to being a little bit more vulnerable with the people around you and see what happens. And write about it and observe it. Observe yourself. Do some heart breathing when you're feeling really vulnerable and just connect to your true self, which is love. And see if that can help you just open up and expand a little bit more. So I hope you have a great week. I hope that this resonates, and I would love to hear more about your experiences with this in the comments. Have a great week.